for regulators. I think there has to be some trusting going on. And then you brought up this issue of how we can speed up some of these processes, by having this sort of global engagement where the data is flowing in. Sometimes the concern that we have, in clinical practice, at least I can see, is that there's so much data, that the processing of it is not so, the speed is there, but the processing so that it becomes available quickly, is sometimes not as optimal as you would do. But I gather this would be a technological issue. I guess there's an educational process going on too. We have to adapt. Clinicians, maybe even patients, have to sort of adapt to this sort of environment to see how they can engage and they can participate. I don't know if you want to comment from your point of view. What are your experiences in terms of what sort of looking into the future in terms of actions to take to sort of reach that level of efficiency and optimization of the use of these raw data that's out there. So what sort of educational steps should we take, globally, for clinicians, for healthcare providers, for patients, even for this to sort of move forward efficiently and effectively?
If I could summarize with a simple word, it would be active participation. We notice this in many research projects, but also in large initiatives. For example, in the UK, we have a large institute now called Health Data Research UK that tries to bridge health data science between research and clinical practice in our National Health Service. And through that approach, the biggest effort we have put is the active participation of the citizen and the patient, but also all stakeholders. So patient-public involvement is not simply a token exercise, but it is an active exercise. So even in development of technologies, we co-design technologies with all stakeholders, not only the clinicians who might benefit from the use of the tools so that they can provide care, but also the recipients of the care who can also benefit from particular tools, particular technologies that are there. I think the future is more active participation. We have been talking about patient-centric approaches to digital health and technology, but then the patient is a passive recipient of that technology, or the citizen is a passive recipient of that technology. I think we need to make them active in the design and in the management of this technology and data, associated data with that. So I think for me, that's the main and important role of that work. So as such, you need to help and educate, and through education, you can increase transparency in both technology, approaches, legislation, regulation, policies. So I think that's the crux of it.
It's more than ever an ongoing learning, no big process, because as you can see, now we talk about blockchain. Maybe in 2 years, we'll not talk anymore about blockchain. So the huge amount of new terms and terminology, it's quicker than ever, no? And in that process, sometimes some clinicians are very afraid of going to that stream because, oh, but what is, where can I learn these things? And then it will, I think clinicians do not remember the huge amount of power in the good sense, because that power has to be shared to everybody, that they have in being in the center of the, maybe it shouldn't be the center, it should be the citizen, but be in many parts in having an important role in this flow of information, flow of data. So people trust clinicians. So this is a huge advantage, that puts you in a position where you can have time to learn, but this is not forever. Or clinicians get engaged in these processes, or citizens with cooperatives, with things, will take the lead, which is also good, because there has to be competition everywhere. So clinicians have the responsibility to keep the ongoing formation during the whole life, and be part of the process, And in that sense, action is very important, and sharing, we have been able to do all these projects in the very few weeks, and the last month, as I shared you, this project of I Give To, which is that platform with our wonderful colleagues of Ibreve, is sharing with people the epidemics. It's more than 150 clinicians helping us. It's sharing, and that allows you to be able to be in that mainstream and participate with others in clinical trials, in exchange of information with citizens, in exchange information with physicians that then can finally implement a clinical trial in the hospitals. And this is the moment, no, of participation, sorry, and learning from the collective learning. There is no way to say, oh, here I have a glossary of these subjects. You must be proactive and participate in these things and have different team members with different roles and be open. No?
I think one of the things that we all are learning with COVID, I think it was brought up in the earlier sessions, and I think one of you or so has mentioned, you know, there have been a lot of, COVID is becoming an opportunity to actually enact innovation much more quickly than in the past. You know, we've mentioned telemedicine as a tool, and how suddenly all the clinical care systems have implemented some form of telemedicine without even thinking twice about it. I guess they'll have to go back and review what they've done and how they've done it. Something that has been around, and we've been talking about it for almost, I would say, decades now. Yeah. Sort of thing. So I think that in terms of how to implement and incorporate data, these raw data, we may be facing a similar moment, that because we are realizing how important that data is in terms of making some decisions, even some epidemiological decisions, like in relation to COVID. And I think we've just sort of brought this up, but the three of us, certainly the two of you, have brought this up. I think the one concern always becomes how you implement, if not regulation, but structure to it, in a way that it becomes useful, and we always talk about bad data, good data, but we also have to sort of see how to apply that, in some form or fashion. And I think that looking into the future, I think that's something that we need to sort of think about, very closely and distinctly, how to be curators without necessarily blocking, the access to that data. Because as you said yourselves, everybody is willing to share data if that improves their lives and the lives of others around them. So it's a matter of just how to do so. Well, I think we're coming to an end. I don't know if you want to have closing comments. The idea here was to, provide us a picture for 2025. That was what we were brought. So I guess if you could, in two or three sentences, to say, what would the world look like in terms of raw data in 2025? What would that be for you, for either, each one of you, sort of thing, that we could close this way. And just to remind people before I forget, that the general sessions reopen at 2 p.m. where the commissioner, I believe, Commissioner Gabriel is going to be talking actually in that first session. So I encourage everybody who's here, if they will attend that session too, that I'm sure it would be quite informative. But going back to Theo and Jordi, what is your view of 2025? And with this, we close.
I can start. I think we see a glimpse of the future now. We see the value of real-world data coming, especially with this tragic pandemic that is coming in as an opportunity to support us in new ways of thinking the way we deliver care. A more inclusive approach to delivery of care, a more patient-centric approach to delivery of care, and a more data-driven approach. So we try to improve our real-time evidence as much as possible. So I think I can see this happening in the future, and this becoming the new norm of the future. As you said, unfortunate events as this pandemic can bring a shake-up to the system, and probably the way we need to think about innovations is to, yes, not be disruptive by destroying the structures and approaches we had until now, but being disruptive enough to question the structures and approaches we had until now. And I think this will be seen very different in 2025, where digital health and more patient-empowered approaches will be in place. The issue of data quality is very important. And again, I hope that in the next few years, we don't put a barrier because of bad data or good data, but we try to understand what it means to have a particular level of quality and how this influences our decisions. We do that every day. We take risks on data and sensory information we as individuals take from the outside world. And we risk assess on the basis of that. So I think data quality should be seen, but not been a barrier for the future. So I think this is a positive message that we see coming forward.
Yeah, I see probably what is being called sometimes the real-time health system. No, there is a necessity to have a real-time health system. For that, you need a digital platform that really complies with that can really make these things happen. That means any app, any wearable, anything cannot be embedded without thinking with the whole layers of the digital system that must be implemented in any place. Interoperability is a must. Nobody can develop anything thinking that it will be in a silo. So everybody will be integrated. That has pros and cons because many small players maybe cannot participate, but I think it's good that everybody must have in mind that this tool will be embedded, no, in a digital health system that will try to achieve real-time health system. No? I think it is the aim that has been put on the table by many government, many agencies, many consultancies like Gartner, all these people that always are thinking in the future. But now, after the outbreak, it's not the future anymore. It's a potential reality. And more importantly, when that will happen, because look, wearables are very invasive. In the future will be less and less wearables and more cameras, many things that or tissues. So then the real data will be massive. And in that sense, I think that having a real-time health system with all these things already embedded in the citizens, there should be a huge opportunity for adding finally the social determinants of health, which is something that is always there. We know that if somebody lives in that stop of the metro, lives 20 more years than in that other, in the big cities, but this is very important because if we know the prevention activities of the people, we can make an impact there, no? And it has been very difficult until now. But if we have into account the social determinants of health, not the same, by the way, to have a crisis like the one that we had in a 45 meter square flat than in a 200 meters, and we know the numbers are there, and the open numbers are there with contagiosity and all that, no? So in that sense, we expect a huge future. There had to be a crisis, a big future to make that happen. The ingredients were there. Right now, everybody's thinking how to finally make that happen. But as Professor Theo said, the technology is there. Now the mentality is there. And I think we had a huge opportunity. And finally, it's like when the managers of the healthcare systems that must be real-time healthcare systems understand that the technology is there and that they must increase a little bit the budget of all this technology, one. And second, by the other side, citizens understand that if they go to the bank, they have already the data of many bank accounts. How is it possible that we are not prepared for the next outbreak to have all the data in their hands? So these two elements will make that possible, no? That we have 2025 real-time health systems. But I would like to go beyond that. Then that system allows us to be preventive with the people that they really need it, no? Because then we will save a lot of money and we'll have a better well-being for everybody.
That outlook, I'm sure, will help also, which is an element that we haven't discussed so much, is how to pay how to sustain these models of care, because all that technology, after all, requires investment, and so I think this is certainly a subject for future discussion. As we develop these technologies, how are they implemented in an efficient, and cost-effective way? Well, thank you very much. I think we should close. This was due to finish at 45. It's a little past that. I thank both of you and the audience that has been listening. I haven't, maybe a couple questions have come through I haven't shared with you, but I think they were answered in some indirect or direct way by your comments. So wish you all luck facing the COVID pandemic, and hopefully we will see each other, or we'll remind you again about the 2 p.m. sessions that are restarting with the Real Data Summit that the Science Business is organizing. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye.
Theo, a pleasure. Huh?